Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Scuffed Up. Today is episode 13 on this wonderful day in the summer of June, I should say. On the verge of hitting July, we are right on the curb of the OC Wiffleball Championship and World Series game. Today we got a lot of things to discuss. We're going to predict some winners. We're going to break down some winners, losers from the Week 9 results. And we're going to talk about other things that happened earlier during the day for this broadcast at the time that this is being recorded. Partner Steven, on the other side, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. A little sunburnt, a little tired right now, but just been a busy day. It's been a great week for some teams in here, and a very bad week for some other teams. But we'll get more into that as we move along here.
Yeah, we have a lot of big news that just came around in terms of the league. We have some big underdogs, some champions fighting for the title, veteran teams, new teams in the playoffs. So it's a whole different picture this year, and we'll get to that in a few moments. The overview of today, Week 9 results, playoffs results, talking about a tournament that just happened, just finished today, and then previewing what's going to happen in the playoffs this week. And then for your special announcement, the World Series will be a live show broadcast for this Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. The pregame show will start right around that time, and then the games will begin around 6:30 p.m. at the OC, or the Great Park in OC at the softball facility, their stadium. And we hope you can join us, because we're going to interview some of those guys from those teams and get some really good stories, and hopefully have a good pregame show, and then give you guys a good broadcast. Myself and Steven will be on that broadcast as well, and so we hope you guys are able to join us for that, and some pretty exciting stuff we got for you guys.
Yeah, we're coming close to the end of the summer season. Some of the new dates have just been announced for the fall and winter seasons. We'll get more into that after this week. We want to focus on this season for this week, but we got some exciting stuff coming up, including some tournaments and things like that, whether it be ones that we're organizing or ones that guys like you and me, Justin, are playing in. It's an exciting time. We're down to the final four teams now. It's 4 teams battling for one title right now. 4 new teams that have never been in a World Series before that are battling for a title. So we'll see who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, you as an experienced player, being in this league for a while, you notice that a lot of these teams have kind of left behind a great legacy for OC Wiffleball. But now we're seeing a new shape take things around for OC Wiffleball, and some teams taking their place in the history books. So we'll talk about that. Let's discuss Week 9. So let's back up and rewind a little bit here. We had 4 teams in total fighting for a playoff spot, which were the Avocabros, Go Hill Pitchers, Trash Pandas, and then we are also talking about Whoosh as well. Those 4 teams, based on those different scenarios that you saw last week, determines whether they got in or not. Let's talk about those, and let's tell our audience who won and made it to the playoffs, and so on and so forth. So, beginning off with the Week 9 results, we have the Purple Huskies taking on the Brothers of Bash. This one not as important as most other games. Obviously, Purple Huskies already being in the playoffs, Brothers of Bash being already knocked out of the playoffs. But Purple Huskies finished the season off strong. Huge win over the Brothers of Bash.
I believe it's the first time we've seen an undefeated team in the regular season, so congrats to them. Starting off with Brothers of Bash, this game was the only game that didn't have any playoff implications. Purple Huskies came in and got the job done. Brothers of Bash wasn't their year this year. Last year they ended up having a good year, ended up being a 5 seed. But this year just wasn't the same. They weren't having the same results. Whether it be a combination of just giving up costly runs or not being able to score enough or hit enough, it ended up not being their year. For the Purple Huskies, things are looking good though. I know we play a little bit more. Played a few more games than normal, playing with 14 games now. This for everybody did. So I mean, to go 14-0, you have to have a lot. You have to have a lot of focus each week. You have to not get lazy or have some unfortunate results happen to you. And the Purple Huskies were able to do that. Should be interesting for the playoffs. It sounds like they may have a couple players missing for their first playoff series. But it should be interesting to see what they'll do, see if they're able to ride that perfect record all the way to a championship.
Yeah, we should keep in mind that Purple Huskies in the the position that they're at. The first seed has never won a World Series championship in the history of OC Wiffleball. So, they may have gone undefeated this year, but they could turn out like the Patriots when they went undefeated in that one season and losing, obviously in the playoffs and coming up short. So, anything can happen for a team like that, riding a big wave of emotions, and it's the biggest moment of the year, and anything can change the mindset or the phase of how you're thinking about in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be there's a possibility. It sounds like Shaden won't be there. It sounds like True Hendrickson may not be there, especially on Monday. That leaves Drake there, and I'm not sure. We'll see if Nigel and Nick will be there. But it leaves question marks at pitcher and the offense. Who's going to produce for them? Only having three guys, how much defense are they going to be able to play? Are they going to have to rely on the strikeout a lot and things like that? So it'll be interesting to see for these guys. But overall, you can't take away the accomplishment they had in the regular season. Congrats to them, undefeated season. They deserve to be the number one seed for maintaining the consistency. Even when they had 5-4-3 guys showing up, they were still able to get results the whole season. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, credit the good offense and good pitching on both sides of the ball. Kind of predicted at the beginning of the season that they would be this super team heading into the playoffs, and they kind of proved us in every single way, going undefeated in the regular season. So anything can change. Like you said, the Hendrickson brothers not being there possibly on Monday is a huge deal, especially if we're talking about playoff seeding and the team that they're going to face, which we'll talk about in a few moments, is looking to squander that and leave it up to the challenge. And hopefully, they get all their guys as well, because the team that I'm talking about in particular has had a few guys missing this year in certain games. So once we get to them, then we can talk about what that matchup will look like later on. Moving on, though, the Trash Pandas taking on the Bad News Dingers. Now, this game determined whether the Trash Pandas would hold on to a playoff spot or not. But if the Trash Pandas did secure this win, then they'd be in the playoffs. And in doing so, Trash Pandas did beat the Bad News Dingers, putting themselves in the playoff position. Didn't matter if they were the 5th or 6th seed. They secured themselves for the playoffs, and we'll later talk about which team they also faced. But your thoughts about this game?
No, Trash Pandas. They started getting hot at the end of the regular season. They were getting hot at the right time. It wasn't looking very good for them to make the playoffs for a little bit there. So I think at some points they were either 11th or 12th in the standings. But they needed this one, and they needed Goat Hill pitchers to lose a game, which ended up happening later on in order to make the playoffs. So Trash Pandas, they played the early game. They had to stick around for an hour. Had to wait for the other games to finish to see and determine whether they would be in the playoffs or not. So fair play to them. For Bad News Dingers, focusing on them. Joe's done all right this year. He didn't have quite the season that he had last year. The ERA went up a little bit this year. Talking about the guy as a consistent pitcher, but just the ERA was not the best for him. At an 8.43 ERA and 35 and 2/3 innings pitched, allowing 50 runs in there. Not the best season for him pitching wise, and then hitting wise as a team. They had a very low average overall as a team. The team average had a 271, highlighted by Shane McCoy with a 304 batting average. Although Alan Yakovlev was getting on base a lot with 605 on base percentage, but that if they figure that second pitcher and someone who can lock it in, they could be a dangerous team. They just got to be able to turn around, have more consistent hitting in each game, and figure out that pitching and things like that.
Yeah, they have the whole off season to kind of work on that a little bit and work on the hitting, especially for the Bad News Dinkers. But Trash Pan has been kind of that team that kind of showed up out of nowhere and really brought things. I mean, they're a new team this year, and they needed a win to be able to secure themselves in the playoffs, and they did that in doing so against the Bad News Dinkers. And here they are, making their first appearance in the playoffs. Mo Wright has been pitching his heart out. Michael Haskell has been hitting really good. They figured out the pitching a little bit late, but just in time for the playoffs, it seems like. And the hitting has been just consistent the entire year. So they have two different factors going right for them in the right time. So they could be a dangerous playoff team, but we don't really usually expect those rookie teams to really make it that far in the playoffs. But they do have a good chance of making it really far with the kind of guys that they have in there. It's just a matter of what kind of experience will help them get into there.
Yeah, a bunch of group baseball guys there. With guys like this, they have some experience in terms of like playoff atmosphere and things like that. They're not going to think too big in the moment. They're going to be there. They're going to be ready to perform and things like that. And they came at the right time. Mo Wright, we've mentioned him a lot. His pitching is, he started off as not a pitcher at all to really improving and becoming a better pitcher. I got 31 strikeouts in 16 innings so far. He didn't pitch very much in the beginning of the year, but then he kind of became their number one pitcher with that riser. That also screws in sometimes. If he develops a couple other pitches, he could be a very dangerous pitcher and possibly a Cy Young candidate. I mean, he already had a 3.75 ERA for the year just with one pitch. So imagine what happens once he gets a second pitch in as well. That could be very dangerous for Mo. But overall, good win here for Trash Pan is much needed for their playoff hopes. And because of a loss Goat Hill pitchers took in one of these games, they were able to move on to the playoffs.
Right, so that takes it to the next point. Go Hill pitchers taking on Angel Hernandez Strike Zone. They had 2 games during the week, and they needed at least one win to help them to get into the playoffs, whether or not. But unfortunately, the other circumstance we'll get to in a sec here. But Go Hill pitchers, they put themselves in a good spot taking on Angel Hernandez Strike Zone and coming away with a dub. So that puts them in great position to try to fight for that last playoff spot. Obviously, Trash Pandas took it away with the first one. So this kind of keeps their hopes alive a little bit in that running. But your thoughts about that game as well?
No, it was a game they needed to win. It was a game they should have won, and they ended up winning. For focusing on Angel Hernandez Strike Zone, it's a for a lot of teams that start off in this league. Usually they have to have a developmental season or two, and this was that kind of year for them. They're working on the pitching. They're figuring that out, and they're kind of adjusting to the different rules in this league. Hitting wise as a team, they weren't great. Carter Stewart did pretty well for a 379 average and a 526 on base percentage, but as a team overall, they had a 244 average. Just not a super great average to be able to score a lot of runs and win a lot of games, and that's what kind of happened. Ended up leading them finishing in last place. They were close. They've been close in a few games, but just haven't been able to finish the job. Whether it be just not hitting enough, or whether it might be with their second pitcher and things like that. They work on this stuff. They can eventually start to become more and more competitive in this league and things like that. But Goat Hill pitchers, Anthony and Matt, they were both out there. They were both ready to go. They knew they needed 2 wins realistically to get into the playoffs. They started off good here, winning this first one.
Yes, it was definitely a tough challenge for them to try to even put themselves in this position. And obviously the next game that they had was really tough as well, because they definitely needed to get this win against their other opponent in the second game. But being able to secure the first win is huge for them. They wanted to keep their playoff hopes alive. And Anthony and Matt Horns have kind of settled themselves as a duo who is able to step up to that matchup and kind of pitch on both sides of the ball. Obviously, Anthony being more consistent on the pitching side of things, and Matt Horns being the bigger hitter, if anything. But yeah, I mean, once we get into this part, it kind of flows things down the river the wrong path, and that's exactly what happened for the Goat Hill pitchers. Avocabros taking on Wiffle D's. If Avocabros won at least this game, then they'd be also in the playoffs, and they just did that as well. Avocabros secured themselves in that last playoff spot, so Trash Pandas and Avocabros were officially in the playoffs at the conclusion of this win, and that basically took Go Hill pitchers out of that as well. So the games that kind of matter to the Go Hill pitchers and Whoosh as well, which we'll get to in a few moments here, kind of just flowed down the river. That chance was kind of gone after that point, so all those ramifications kind of just went down the drain, right? But Avocabros, they secure that win, and they put themselves in a great position to go to the playoffs as well.
Yeah, Avocado this is a very close game. I believe it was somewhere around 5-3 results. We don't have all the results for the games, but we have them for the playoff games, but we don't have them for the Week 9 games. Avocados with a win, they would secure that number 5 seed, and they would move on to the playoffs. And with the way the games are going on, with this win, they eliminated Whoosh. Goat Hill pitchers at this point, they just need one more win to get into the playoffs. They hold the fate of the Trash Pandas in their hands, which we'll get more to later. But Avocabros, they were able to secure that number 5 seed. Focusing on Wiffle D's, there's been a lot of improvement for Wiffle D's. I believe they finished as the 8th seed in the or the 9th seed in the league. There's been a lot of improvement for them. Just guys are learning and understanding how to pitch more and how to pitch better, and they're starting to figure out the hitting more as well. I think that was more of that was more something that grew over the year as the season went on. People are learning how to read pitches, how to understand pitches, and things like that. At the beach they were close in a couple games in their game as well. I believe it was a 7-5 game against the number 2 seed Beach City Bombers. But overall, Wiffle D's, they're starting to figure it out. They figure out a hitter or two, and they can be a dangerous team, possibly a second pitcher. But with the Avocados, they were able to get the job done. They were able to secure that 5 seed, make the playoffs for their first time. It's their second season in the league, but they were able to make the playoffs for the first time. And they were able to secure themselves in that 5 spot there.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Wiffle D's, they kind of improved really a lot this season in terms of the pitching part. They're starting to figure things out, and, especially with that new snazzy Instagram to show a lot of their pitches off as well. I kind of expect them to kind of return pretty strong next season as a team and a group of guys. They seem like they bond pretty well with each other, and I like that mesh between, every single one of those players on that team. So I kind of expect them to kind of bounce back. But over to Avocabros, they kind of they wanted this win, especially, last season being knocked out again from the, other team that made it in there, and Nick Agruz's team, and they kind of lit a fire under them, and they wanted to take this win, and I think they wanted this more than anything else in the world to be able to have that spot in the playoffs, and they kind of deserved it too. Just like the hitting wise, everything was working for them in the right way. Lucas Sardo was leading the league in home runs. Hayden, the Hicker brothers were hitting really good. The pitching maybe has not been as consistent as a lot of people would hope, especially for Avocabros. They want to, have a good run in the playoffs and whatnot. And the run differential especially was not great either this year. But they improved a lot this year, and being able to put themselves in that playoff spot is big for their team.
Yeah, I mean they play a lot of high scoring games. It's not going to be. It's gonna look like a very high powered game sometimes. They're gonna play some of these 14 to 12 games or 15 to 11 games or things like that. When they play the top teams, though, they're able to play them close. They're able to keep them to a low roar and not allow as many runs. But then the offense goes away a little bit, which costs them inconsistency. It'll cost them. I believe they ended up finishing with a 7-7 record. If that jogs my memory, that sounds about right for them. They came in this week 6-7. They finished 7-7 on the year. So they were right around 500. They had a run difference around plus 15 or so. Looking to the next round though, they got the MS Warriors, which is a very tough matchup, but it's a matchup that was doable without Dylan Hoffman, but we'll get more into that in a little later. But Wiffle D's, we're seeing the improvement from you guys. We recognize you as a possible playoff team for next year. And the Avocabros, they were kind of in your spot last year. They were kind of in the Wiffle D spot in the spring season. They were improving throughout the year. They were knocking on the door of the playoffs. They just missed out for this year. So Wiffle D's could be a potential playoff team for next year or next season.
Yeah, they have a lot of really good potential for this season and for next season as well. So, expect them. They got a long break to kind of figure things out. So go, definitely probably going to go check out some tutorial videos, try to test some new things out and practice a little bit. I'm sure they'll come back pretty strong. Moving on, though, playoff ramifications for this game were a little bit interesting as well. MS Warriors taking on the Goat Hill Pitchers. Goat Hill Pitchers basically needed to at least win 2 of these games. They wanted to have any chance of getting in there as well. But this is a tough matchup for them, especially, taking on that team with the experienced Dylan Hoffman and Joey Ponder. But Dylan Hoffman was actually absent for this one. And we had Munoz and a couple of different other guys, I believe. And Am I correct on my assumption there?
Well, you had I'll get into this one. For the Goat Hill Pitchers, they needed to win this game in order to make the playoffs. The MS Warriors were missing Dylan Hoffman and Kyle Froome for this day. Both of them gone in Palm Springs for baseball purposes. So they had Garrett Munoz, they had Joey Ponder, and they had Sean Hepler there to help them out. And really, that addition of the MS Warriors had already played a game on Sunday versus the LA Wolves of OC. And Sean Hepler in his 1 inning of pitching, he looked good out there. Didn't allow a single run in his inning or 2 pitching against the other Wolves of OC. But Joey Ponder really stepped up to the plate in this game. He provided them with 4 good innings, kept Goat Hill pitchers off balance, and was able to provide them with a win. It wasn't MS Warriors were already locked into the 4th seed, but they wanted to make sure the Goat Hill pitchers didn't get in to possibly play them in the 5th seed. You beat a team once. It's possible they could have been the 5 seeds. So you don't want to see them again if you don't have to. So the MS Warriors, with a little bit of a shock victory in my opinion. I wasn't sure how they would do without Dylan and Kyle. They're obviously the best pitcher, and then they're 2 hitters with the highest average. But overall, it ended up being a good game for the MS Warriors, and they move on to play the Avocabros in the next round.
Yeah, especially for MS Warriors, you kind of relied on Dylan Hoffman to be that really good Cy Young award-winning pitcher the entire season, and then he's been busy with running his SoCal Mavericks team, the summer baseball team, and they've had a lot of schedule issues, especially with Kyle Fromm also coaching as well, with alongside Dylan Hoffman, and it kind of became this thing for the MS Warriors. Like, the question is, are they able to compete without their best guy? Do they have the right pieces to be able to push through and hold off against a team that's like trying to get into the playoffs? And I think for guys like Joey Ponder and Munoz and Hepler, it kind of lights a fire under them, and trying to show their best player that they can also be the best players. Ponder was in that MVP conversation at the very beginning of the season.
No. He was not.
And now, obviously not being in there for a while, he kind of played a pretty lights out against Go Hill pitchers and told him, you're going to go home and we'll see you later. So Go Hill pitchers, lost a chance of getting into the playoffs. And it was going to be tough for them either way, especially with Avocabros and Trash Pandas winning both of the games. So there's more pressure on them to win this game than it was the game previously. So props to Go Hill pitchers for winning that game. The next game on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about Goat Hill pitchers a little bit. Not quite the season I think Anthony imagined for them. Anthony did all right. Was doing better pitching this year. 40 innings, had a 6.15 ERA with 67 strikeouts. He improved on the pitching a little bit. Last year he mentioned that he wanted to improve on his pitching. I believe he did. Matt Hornich came out and started pitching a little more, looking better for them than he had in the previous year. They lacked that second pitcher. They had started to figure that out with Matt Hornich a little bit. They also had some contributions from Shelby and Harrison and Lauren Caruso as well to pick up the slack a little bit. Hitting wise, it wasn't quite the same for them. Matt Hornich's average dropped a lot. He dropped down to a 435, which it sounds ridiculous that we're saying it dropped a lot, but the reality is that it did. It did drop especially from his Rookie of the Year campaign in the fall of 2022. Anthony's numbers dropped a little bit as well. The previous season he had hit 561 for average. This year he had a 379. He was second. Matt, was these two really? That was the only two guys that were above the 270 mark. Everyone else was below that. Both were getting on base a lot, but at the end of the day, Matt missed a good number of games. Anthony's got 30 more plate appearances than him. But overall, it was a tough season for them. They had some struggles, especially in the beginning of the year. They had a signature win versus the other Wolves of OC, but other than that, they weren't able to get the job done against the depleted MS Warriors.
Yeah, they got put in a really tough position, and there was a lot of pressure on their shoulders as well. So it was kind of really tough on them to try to win this game, but. They got a group of guys who can work through things, especially with Matt Hornich. Hopefully we can expect him to come back even stronger, and then obviously Anthony will be here as always. Being the commissioner and running things. So, you say the pitching has improved this year. Maybe he can capitalize on that for next season, and maybe which other or not comes around during this time. So we'll see with the return of the Go Hill pitchers next season, whether they have the same name or a new name next season, and hopefully they come out strong. But congrats to MS Warriors for making it securing that spot as well, and putting themselves in a great position as well. The next game was
that's one thing Anthony does. He does change the name of his team a good amount.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think last season they were the Good News Bears, right? And now they're the Go Hill pitchers.
Yeah, they've been a few different names, so who knows if they'll add something new to the mix this coming year.
Oh, hopefully we'll see. I'm waiting to see that Anthony Grusa jersey at some point. Got to see that somewhere, but we'll see for sure. This final game of the regular season was the Beach City Bombers taking on Whoosh. Whoosh had playoff implications for this game as well, but this is literally the toughest game that they've been put into in this position, and that kind of put it a lot on themselves. But Beach City Bombers finish out the season with a victory over Whoosh and take Whoosh out of the playoff picture, and takes them out of there, and Beach City Bombers move on with a bye week on Monday, so they won't be with the bye week for the playoffs. So they beat Whoosh, but what was your thoughts from this one?
And this was actually maybe the closest game of the week. There was a good number of lead changes. Beach City Bombers had already secured the number 2 seed at this point, so they were trying out a few different pitchers out there. Whoosh were up at one point, and then based off the result of the Avocados game and the previous games earlier, they eventually found out like the 5th or the 6th inning. Whoosh did that they were not going to make the playoffs this year. So I think they started having a little more fun. Once they realized they weren't going to be in the playoffs this year. That's why they're the B team. But Whoosh they started off rough. They had a tough start to the season, especially schedule wise. Donald nearly having a 10 ERA, 34 innings pitched, and allowing 56 runs. Ryan Miller had some sparks on the mound, only allowed 3 runs in 4 innings. And Owen Schur was working on it as well. Had a 9.30 ERA, 30 in the third innings pitched with 47 strikeouts. So the pitching is definitely something they can work to improve on. I don't know if they'll maybe if Drew Plant comes back. Drew Plant was a very good pitcher for them. That could have been the difference between them making the playoffs and them not. But as highlighted in one of the Instagram stories recently, Nick Yusoff had a great season, especially hitting wise. Yeah, he had a 5.19 average, a 6.20 on base percentage, had 13 home runs on the year, 41 hits in total. Overall, it was a great season for him, hitting wise. Unfortunately, nobody else on the team really had a great batting average. No one else was above or above 350. Everyone else was either 333 or below. Or sorry, I should say 350 or below. But overall, it was Nick Yusoff was a very good hitter for them. He provided a lot. He provided a lot of offense. He provided them some wins when they went on that 5-game win streak. And so he was a potential name that was brought up into some possible MVP discussion. So we'll see if that comes up to any awards or anything like that. But we'll find out. We'll find out shortly. We'll figure out. Well, I'm not sure when the awards are going out, but we'll see. We'll see when those come out, and we will keep you updated on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest pickup was basically Nick Yusoff for Whoosh, and he's been basically lights out ever since his return from 2 seasons ago. Being absent in the springtime, coming back in the summertime, and really picked off where he started from the beginning with the really good, consistent hitting. Donald LeCompte started lighting up the strike zone a little bit, but obviously it came at a late time. They didn't really have that second pitcher in terms of. But good on them. They went on a really good run to even try to make it into this playoff push, but obviously came up short, just like the Packers last year coming up short on a winning streak. But that's a different story. Anyways,
no one cares.
Whoosh will always be there. They'll be around. Ryan Miller is obviously one of the board members. He'll be here for a while. Nick Yusoff, I expect to be here next season. Don LeCompte obviously will be here next season. As for some of those other guys, I'm sure they'll be around, and I expect Whoosh to be kind of that team to sit around in things for next season. If they're going to keep the name, maybe they'll get a jersey. Who knows? Seems like they got their group of guys out there as well. There was one game we forgot to mention.
I didn't forget, per se. We're just saving it for last.
Yeah, okay. Well, saving it for last. This one was a different one because there was some scheduling issues for Dylan Hoffman's team for Scuffed Mavericks because they had a game on that Tuesday, so they couldn't make it to play 3 games which started at 6:30. So it was a tournament between the managers Stephen Hayden and Dylan Hoffman that they played on Sunday in the morning around 10:30 a.m. This one being played at Yorba Linda, a different field per se, but this was kind of to help seeding determination a little bit. Dylan Hoffman was kind of down on a few guys. Joey Ponder, Munoz, and Fromm were not able to make it, so he had Hepler show up, and he had his brother Drake Hoffman show up, and the LA Wolves OC had 5 guys out there with Ethan Lee, Justin Lee, Stephen Hayden, Jordan Drexler, and Dylan Meunier. They were all out there.
Who?
Meunier.
Dylan Meunier.
Meunier. I had a little bit of slur there. Meunier. But in terms of thoughts about that game, I thought it was interesting because the Yorba Linda Park had a little wiffle ball stadium that you could rent out, but obviously we didn't get that little field, so we had to play outside of that field. So we had our makeshift field out there. It was a pretty nice field, pretty nice day with really nice weather, and LA Wolves OC took on the Cy Young winner from last season and beat the MS Warriors 3-1 on that Sunday. What was your thoughts about that day and that game?
It was an interesting situation out there. You had Dylan and Kyle being coaches of the SoCal Mavericks, and Steven being a player, and Justin being involved with the team as well. They had games Tuesday and Wednesday in Palm Springs, so we decided to play this game early, so that way the MS Warriors didn't have to play 2 games without Dylan and Kyle. Although Kyle wasn't there for this one either, as mentioned before. We allowed Drake to play. Technically, he's only supposed to field, and he can't hit and stuff. But we made sure he didn't pitch, but we let him hit. Maybe it was a mistake, as he got the only hit of the day for the MS Warriors. The LA Wolves pitching was very good that day. Jordan Drexler started on the mound for them through 3 innings, got 8 strikeouts. The first batter of the game, he allowed a ground ball, and he had a couple like 2 walks in his 3 innings. Other than that, he had 8 strikeouts. Steven came in. He had 9 strikeouts on the day. Ended up giving a solo home run in the 6th inning on that ball that was double hit. I still don't know how it was hit. I see Steven seems to have that issue where all the home runs he gives up are double hit. He needs to figure something out because he shouldn't be giving up that many home runs.
It seems like the storyline the entire season.
That seems like the main way that Steven gives up runs, man. It's just a double hit home run, and I don't know what he's going to do to fix that. But right away things got going in the 1st inning. Steven hit a 2-run home run off of Dylan in the 1st inning, make it 2-0, and that kind of set the tone. They were able to get one. We were able to get one more run across. We ended up with a 3-1 victory in a very quick game as well. Not a lot of balls put in play, a lot of strikeouts. Dylan had 7 strikeouts on the day. I believe he now moves up to a 2 ERA, but he's already got 45 innings pitched on the season. Has only allowed 16 runs in the year, so he's a potential Cy Young candidate. He's a Cy Young candidate for sure. He's a potential Cy Young winner now. So we'll see what happens with that if he wins that award. It should be interesting to determine. But overall, it was a fun day out there. And LA Wolves OC with that win. That was how they secured the 3 seed. Was that win over the MS Warriors, and the MS Warriors after that game were sat in the 4th seed.
Yeah, in terms of playoff seeding, it was kind of big for the team to kind of figure out, the playoff seeding and which teams they eventually face up. So when we get to that later, which we'll discuss, the LA Wolves OC would be in place against the Trash Pandas, and then the MS Warriors would be placed against the Avocabros as a result of those Tuesday games. So it was important to have that Sunday game out there as well. There was good hitting. There was some good hitting from LA Wolves OC. Kind of coming in a little bit late. There was three hits. I think Justin Lee hit, Ethan hit. A few good balls out there, but the pitching was really the big story of the day. It kind of became this pitcher's duel for the most part at the very beginning. Obviously there was basically a 1-hit shutout for Steven and Jordan Drexler out there on the mound that day, and being able to finish that game was big and huge for the LA Wolves OC, who generally don't do that great against the team that's formerly known as the Plastic Pitches, but this year they've been able to take it away twice with the Beat Series win and then this game as well on Sunday. So huge in terms of for both for the LA Wolves OC and Stephen Hayden, of course.
Yeah, LA Wolves of OC. They've won their last 4 games against Dylan Hoffman. If you date back to the playoffs of the spring as well, that's how they also were able to make the World Series and have won the World Series. But not to get too big of myself, but quick little discussion. Do we think Stephen Hayden has with his stats overall this year has finished with around a 1.80 ERA in 44 innings pitched, and is going to finish with around a 620 batting average with a 685 on base percentage? Do we think he is potentially the MVP of the league?
We like to combine stats when it comes to MVP in terms of obviously. So, there's been an interesting spread between every single player on the year this season. But, if we're talking about stats on both sides, I think, you definitely dominated in a lot of those categories. This pitching part especially, 100% for sure. If not MVP, definitely Cy Young Award. But I think, with the stat line that you got, 632, which is huge. 36 hits out of 68. Oh my gosh, how do you even do that? And then Jordan Drexler was on that line to be kind of that silver slugger of the LA Wolves OC. And then midway through, when Jordan was absent, then Steven kind of took things over and put himself in a great position. So I think, if we're comparing against other MVP candidates like Tyler Moore, for example, 441, 15 home runs, 79 plate appearances, 26 hits, it doesn't even compare to that number. And I don't want to be big on you either because we're both LA Wolves OC players, but I think you got a good chance at going for this.
We'll see what happens. We'll discuss this more at a later time. Who we think all the possible potential award winners are, and the All-American first and second team of the summer season. We'll discuss this more at a later date. But for now, based off how these numbers finished. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to see anyone but Steven, in my opinion, win the MVP. That's my feelings on it. You know, there have been some guys who have had some great seasons. Instagram post from a few weeks ago. He mentioned the Hoffmans. He mentioned the Hendricksons. He mentioned Nick Yusoff and Stephen Hayden, all as potential MVP candidates. But if you combine the numbers, you know they finished as a 3 seed as well. But if you combine all the numbers, I believe overall, I think Steven deserves to win his first MVP. Possibly got robbed of an MVP in the spring of 2022. That's his opinion. I'm speaking for him because I am him. But overall, I think it's a very big possibility that they could end up winning, that he could end up winning this MVP. But we'll discuss that more at a later date and time. We have some more pressing issues to talk about.
Yeah, so you mentioned, pressing matters, but let's talk, before we get to everything else, before we get to that story, let's talk about what happened as we're recording this podcast for the SoCal June 24th tournament. This was kind of one of the bigger ones on our calendars. You had a good lineup of guys, but I think you should definitely talk about this a little bit more. But we played a tournament a few weeks ago up in Upland, obviously taking on some really tough teams. But, SoCal tournament, we've been there in January, came up short against the commissioner of SoCal Wiffleball, Dustin Stagg's team. But I'll let you take things over. What was your kind of ideal coming into this tournament? What was your expectations, and who did you have on your team?
Yeah, so we put another group out for one of the SoCal Wiffleball summer tournaments. As you guys know, I've been more involved with SoCal Wiffleball and things like that. I've been balancing both. No, I've been balancing both OC Wiffleball and SoCal Wiffleball, doing stuff with both leagues. If I finally had some availability for this week or for this weekend, the previous weekends I hadn't been able to go to their tournaments, but this week I had some availability given the baseball schedule. So I took a couple of my current teammates. So we'll see. I took Jordan Dreschler and I took Ethan Lee. I took Justin Lee. I wish I had Ethan. Never mind. Wow. I took Justin Lee with me.
I don't think he would have been a very good base runner.
Probably not, or a fielder.
Yeah,
we'll get more into the fielding later, but we also had former OC Wiffleball player out there who is the captain of a SoCal Wiffleball team out there. We had PJ Gordon come out and play with us, the spring 2023 All-Star Game MVP. We had him come out and play with us. There were only 8 teams in this tournament. It was one of the smaller tournaments. It almost got canceled due to a lack of teams. But overall, we did pretty well. We got put in some hard group games. We won our first game 4-0. PJ and I both had home runs. Second game, it was a real battle. There was not a single ball put in play. It was a 0-0 game. And the third game, there was only 1 or 2 balls put. There was like 2 or 3 balls put in play, and another 0-0 game. So we finished that. We finished the pool play. We finished 1-0-2 with 1 win, 0 losses, and 2 ties. And ended up putting us in the 3 seed going into the tournament. We faced off against the 6 seed, which was the Sox. We beat them 3-0. So we moved to the semifinals. The semifinals, it was the 4 toughest teams out there were left. We once again had to go against the commissioner of SoCal Wiffleball, the organizer of these tournaments. We had to go against him. We made it to the semifinals, but we ended up losing that game 3-0. It was a very good game. It was a close game. We had a couple opportunities to score. Last inning, we had bases loaded. Unfortunately, Steven grounded out. Hit it hard, but just hit it right at him. Dustin was playing with only 2 players as well, because his earlier player, actually Mitchell Downing, had left earlier in the day. He wasn't able to be around for the whole day. But Dustin's team ended up going on to win that tournament as well later on. So, we lost in a close game to the eventual champions. I felt good about how we did on the day. PJ pitched very well. I did well hitting and pitching. and then Jordan and Justin did both fielding and hitting as well. Jordan's starting to figure out more of that fast pitch stuff. He's struggled at the Upland tournament hitting wise, but he's starting to figure out the hitting more and stuff. And then Justin's been more consistent with getting on base and things like that. But overall, I thought it was a good day for us. Overall, I had some improvements. Last time we were at this tournament was the New Year's Eve tournament on 2022. We made it to the quarterfinals and lost to Dustin's team again. But that's just the way it goes. Sometimes we gotta find a way to beat that. I especially do, because I have to play in the league. I have to play Dustin Stagg's team at some point, so I gotta find a way to beat them. But what did you think about it?
I thought it was really fun. I mean, better conditions than last time, obviously. With all the rain and the moisture and everything like that. It was a sunnier day, 75 degrees just about or so. We played some really good teams in that, so it kind of gave us some good experience. It was kind of interesting, talking to Dustin about this tournament, because this was actually one of his more popular dates on the calendar for the SoCal Wiffleball tournaments. Last year on the same day, he actually had like 16 teams, but this year it was reduced to 8 for whatever reason. Maybe some people were out of town, some people had different schedules, stuff like that. I know you mentioned that it was, not as advertised at one point. There's a lot of different factors of, how, why people show up, why people didn't. But other than that, I thought it was a good day. My expectations going into it was just get hits for the most part, just get on base. I thought it was a better job in terms of, I don't know if you agree with that or not. In the game against Dustin, I was just trying to get a hit off the dude, and I got hit like 3 times. So I got on base, luckily, on lucky pitches. So other than that, I mean, we had a good opportunity to finally, put something against Dustin Staggs. But, we lose to a team of 2 guys again. And I don't know. We'll talk about a little bit later, being the 3rd seed and everything like that. And what that could mean in terms of. But I thought it was a good day in total. And, it's fun to be out there. And, the final game, you had SoCal Riptide taking on Dustin Stagg's team. And then, SoCal Riptide was one of the teams we played in the 3rd game of the day, and then Dustin Stagg's team obviously was the eventual winner of that tournament, and here we are. So I thought it was a good day. We played basically the 2 best teams to make it in there. So those were my thoughts.
Yeah, all the teams. We played all the other 3 teams at one point or another that made it to the semifinals of the tournament. We played the 3 other tough teams, and we were one of the tough teams as well. Of the combination of me and PJ pitching, it was a very good look for us. We didn't allow a single run on the day until that last game, which Steven allowed 3 runs. Lost the control a little bit. Lost his wiffle balls apparently as well on in his most recent series that he played. He left them, but he was able to adjust and play with a couple different types of balls. But it's good to get out and play different styles as well. For anyone who's interested, there will be more tournaments and stuff coming up in the future, as well as the OC Wiffleball tournament, which will be coming up later on. We're still working on finalizing the dates and the rules and things like that. But if anyone's interested in playing more tournaments like this, we saw former player Jeff Roboto out there. He was playing on a team. We had PJ Gordon on our team today. There were some OC Wiffleball guys in the past. There have been more OC Wiffleball guys that go out to play, such as Brandon Mayo. It's a good group of people. It's a competitive group. You get a mix of older people and younger people in there as well. So you get to experience what it's like. In our league, it's an older league in terms of age. 18 plus or 21 plus, stuff like that. But the league is starting to. But this one, it's really open to anyone in terms of their tournaments and things like that. So it'll be. I'm not sure if I'll be able to. How many more tournaments I'll be able to go in the summer. But if any of you guys are interested, keep updated on the SoCal Wiffleball Instagram page for their tournaments, and also keep updated on the OC Wiffleball Instagram for the tournaments. We'll hopefully be announcing that pretty soon. That'll be taking place sometime in July. Probably looking at a couple Sundays, looking around July 16th and July 23rd as the dates. There's like a World Cup style of play. So that should be interesting, and we'll let you guys know more on that in the future.
Yeah, typically these tournaments usually happen in a single day. OC Wiffleball I know is trying to do something with multiple different days and doing that, that World Cup style of things, like you said. So the rules for that will be interesting. And I honestly, doing these tournaments, I'm gassed at the end of these things because you're just playing at least, 4 to 5 games in each tournament. And you get to the very last game, you're completely gassed the entire day because there were breaks and everything like that, but the longevity of every single game, even though it was like a 2-out games in the round robin and 3-inning games in the the championship stuff, it's tough to kind of build that endurance for those games. So it'll be interesting for OC Wiffleball, especially for that tournament, and having it spread out amongst them and giving teams a little bit more rest.
Yeah, it's really, sometimes it's not necessarily who's the better team, it's just who is the better mentally prepared and going to be better for the day and better as the day goes on. And Dustin's proved he can do that. That's his second tournament win of the year. We got to find a way to beat him at some point.
Yeah, we'll be looking for that in the next tournament, and maybe we'll get some good representation for the OC Wiffleball tournament at some point if we're able to get that. But if you want to join, go sign up. Keep in the loop and check out those dates. Also, shout out to Joaquin for getting this axe bat hyper stick today. He was
it's upside down.
Part of a giveaway. Oh, there we go. Right, there you go. As part of a giveaway that he had. So pretty sweet bat, and thanks.
Should have been mine.
Yeah, Steven was very close to winning it as well on the wheel that he had. It was basically chosen and landed right on Steven's name and slowly went over to my name. So got the bat. Here we go. So it could have been either one of us, but it's still pretty cool. Anyways, yeah, hopefully we do more SoCal Wiffleball tournaments. I think they're really fun. There's, a lot of bigger ones coming about in, the fall time. That's kind of where the big names kind of come about, but we can discuss it at a different time. But, as you said before, pressing news for OC Wiffleball as we turn back to the playoffs, as we talk about it. The matchups for the divisional round, you got the MS Warriors taking on the Avocabros, the number 4 seed taking on the number 5 seed, and then you have the Trash Pandas, the number 6 seed, taking on the LUSO OC in the 3rd seed. Now let's talk about the first one. MS Warriors taking on Avocabros, their first playoff appearance. MS Warriors trying to get back to a level that last year they were in the 1 seed, fell to the LA Wiffles OC, and now they're back in the playoffs, having to fight a little bit more with maybe a chip on the shoulder, especially being down with a couple of people without Dylan Hoffman, and they came away with the win against the Avocados with a 4-2 victory.
MS Warriors, they shocked a lot of people here, especially without their 2 best hitters, Dylan and Kyle there. Joey Ponder really stepped up on the day. I think he mentioned he went something like 11 for 18 between the 2 games. He was just getting a lot of singles, getting on base a lot. He was with 3 guys. You get up to the plate so much, you're getting up to the plate at least once an inning, and you keep getting some hits. You just keep seeing the ball. You keep seeing the pitcher over and over again. Eventually, you're going to start figuring some stuff out, as they did in their first game versus the Goat Hill pitchers, and they did also again this game as the Avocabros. The Avocabros, they really need to make sure they're getting into high-scoring games. Oftentimes when they have these 4-2 games, more times than not, they're going to be losing these games like this. We've seen it when they play the Yellow Wolves of OC, 4-1, 7-1, things like that, or other games where they're losing 4-3. They won some, but more times than not, they need to make sure the offense is going. But Joey Ponder pitched very well, and Sean Hepler was able to help pitch in with his 2 innings as well. So congratulations, MS Warriors. I think this was. Even though the MS Warriors were the higher seed, I think this is a little bit of an upset, given the fact that Dylan and Kyle weren't there. And we'll see what happens with this next week, and it's going to be interesting with Dylan and Kyle both returning for the MS Warriors as they take on the Purple Huskies in the next round. That's going to be interesting to see, but we'll preview that more later. But congratulations to the MS Warriors And to the Avocados, congrats on a good season. 7-7 on the year. One of the 5 teams with a positive run difference, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough on Tuesday night to get past the MS Warriors.
Yeah, MS Warriors put themselves in a great spot. It was a big challenge, like we said before. Not having your best player out there during the day, and having Joey Ponder kind of prove things for their team. And I think they just did just that. You talk about the big upset against Avocados. Avocados, obviously, they had fantastic offense this year. Weren't able to get up onto the stage and pull out a victory. So, hopefully they'll be back next season. We expect them to make another push for the playoffs yet again. Lucas Sardo had a heck of a season this year, including the Hager brothers and a lot of those other guys on the Avocados. Really good numbers. You could say it was an improvement on the offensive side, but the biggest thing was the pitching for them as well. So MS Warriors, congratulations. And I think they got a chip on the shoulder riding into this one, as they're going to be placed against the Purple Huskies, who are undefeated, but potentially be missing out on the Hendrickson brothers. And the storyline, the fact that Dylan Hoffman's back, they were holding down the Purple Huskies in the last game until Joey Ponder was absent for that game against them, and they kind of fell apart at the end once Dylan Hoffman used up his 4 innings.
Yeah, and they were winning that game 5-0, ended up losing that game 10-5 because nobody could find the pitching. Now that hopefully Joey and Dylan will both be there, they can make some improvements. Plus, with the possibility of True Hendrickson and Shaden Hendrickson not being there, we know Shaden's not going to be there, but it's possible True Hendrickson will be there now on Monday. Yeah, that's a big wrinkle into the works. Causes them to be down to 3 people. Drake Hoffman's had a good year pitching, but he hasn't pitched as much as True and Shaden. He's kind of been their 3rd pitcher, even though he has a lower ERA. And then it'll be to try to figure out, seeing if Nigel and Nick will be there. I know Nigel does have some experience pitching in this league, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot easier for the MS Warriors to be able to hit him versus if they had to go against True or Shaden at this point. So it'll be a very interesting matchup between these two. But but for this first game, congrats to the MS Warriors and to the Avocados. Hopefully we'll see you next season, and congratulations to making the playoffs for the first time.
Absolutely. So this will be an interesting matchup. We'll break that down in just a few moments. Here's the biggest one of the day. Trash Pandas taking on the LA Wolves of OC. Trash Pandas, a brand new team this season, riding off a wave of huge emotions. A lot of pressure put on themselves, taking on the former the reigning champs of the spring 2023 season. LA Wolves of OC looking to continue their reign and try to get back to the World Series game. But this was the big shocker of the day. LA Wolves of OC and Trash Pandas go into extra innings and would eventually, Trash Pandas would beat the LA Wolves of OC in the biggest upset of the playoffs of the day. Your thoughts about this game? I know this one was not the results you wanted for this one.
I might need a while on this one.
This is a moment of silence? Okay.
This one hurt. The LA Wolves of OC, they entered this team, this playoffs as the defending champions. They won the spring 2023 championship. It was a poor game. We'll get into this a little more, whether it was more the Trash Pandas won or the LA Wolves of OC lost. There was a lot of confusion from the LA Wolves of OC about who will be there, who won't be there. They ended up having 8 players there for the first time, which had not happened the whole year, and it caused a lot of people not to be able to hit as much. In 8 innings, I only had 4 at bats. Jordan only had 4 at bats as well for 2 of the top hitters, if not the 2 top hitters in the league this season. It was just not good overall. It was a pitcher's duel from the beginning. 3rd inning, Ethan Lee hit a home run. The 4th inning, Steven hit a triple to score the 2nd run of the game, make it a 2-0 game. Then the top of the 5th inning, Trash Pandas, Jordan Dressler's pitching. He gives up a 2-run homer. I forget to who, but he gave up a 2-run homer. make it a 2-2 game. They continue on into the 8th inning, and then just one of them. I don't know if the word is bonehead or just didn't think for a sec, but one of the worst ways I've seen a team lose a game. Top of the 8th inning, you got 2 outs, runners on first and third, 3-2 count. A slow ground ball is hit over to Ethan Lee. Ethan Lee ends up pushing the ball fair past the cone for a single, causing the score to be 3-2. Just wasn't thinking there, and ended up costing the other Wiffles of OC the game. But Steven pitching on the day, he threw 4 innings, had 12 strikeouts, only allowed 1 hit, and did not allow a single run. But Jordan Dressler, he didn't have his best stuff. He didn't trust his stuff as much as normal. But ended up giving up the 3 runs in the 3-2 loss. But this one hurt. I had thought the other OC were gonna have a great chance to win it all again. Being the only team in the playoffs that had really had a lot of playoff, especially success, but experience. The MS Warriors have the most experience now. They've played in a couple playoffs. They have not won a playoff series, but they have some experience in there. But really kind of just an unfortunate result for the Yellow Wolves of OC. A game that they should have won, and they lost. This one hurt. This one personally hurt. As the captain of the Yellow Wolves of OC, I was very disappointed with how the game went. A couple calls I thought were put against us that should have been reviewed more carefully, paid attention to. But at the end of the day, I don't want to take anything away from the Trash Pandas. They fought, they battled, they stayed in the game. They were able to keep the other Wolves of OC off balance enough to only allow 2 runs in 8 innings. So congratulations to them. I'm just kind of at a loss for words but after the game, I was very much at a loss for words to how to describe this game.
Yeah, and the fair right too. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities for Elwood OC to kind of put things in front. Trash Pandas, credit to Mo Wright, who pitched his heart out. Made it a pitcher's duel, made it really tough for the Elwood OC to hit. The lineup confusion was kind of difficult, of course. It kind of just came down to who was going to hit in those, ripe situations. Dominic Caroni was lighting it up on the batting side as well, but a lot of those balls just kind of got robbed from a lot of different guys and one other circumstance, but rule changes are rule changes. We could talk about that all we want, but there was a call out there that was made in the moment, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just part of the game. You just got to move on and do what you can. Came down to bottom of the 7th. Elwood OC had a good opportunity to walk things off. You had the runner over at second. Justin Lee hit 1 single. In his at bat down the line, put the runner on third, put himself on first, and it kind of came down to who was going to be that next guy up to kind of hit that game-winning hit. Obviously, didn't come through, and Trash Pandas capitalized on a interesting error by the infielder, and I'm sure he'll be thinking about that one in the offseason for some time now. Maybe some adjustments will be made in the offseason, but really credit the Trash Pandas for making it, fighting all the way through. They wanted this one more than anything, and props to them for defeating the reigning champions of the Spring 2023 World Series, and they'll take on some of their buddies on the Beach City Bombers, and we'll talk about the playoff picture a little bit later. But yeah, this one's a tough one to kind of swallow. The big fat pill, that one's going to be being digested for a while. So we got a long way till the fall season. So
yeah, it was very frustrating. I was pitching my heart out. I mean, you have 12 strikeouts, don't allow a run. That should be a game. And the other 2 innings, you should be able to win. Just wasn't enough at the end. You gotta hit a little more. It was just very disappointing overall. It was, that game wasn't the team we could be. I felt like we kind of some people on our team kind of just thought we were automatically just going to win that no no matter who we played, and we didn't have to try very hard. Which I'd never thought that, but I kind of got that feeling. It was like, okay, it's going to be an easy win. We're going to move on and play the Beach City Bombers next week, and before people knew it, we were down in the 8th inning. There'll be some interesting conversations with the OC coming for next season. There could be some division in the team, whether and things like that with the new divisions coming out into the team. Some talk about some potential players leaving, but that'll be discussed more as we move on with the season. But overall, just a very disappointing way for the defending champions to move out, and there will be a new champion obviously crowned this year. A team that has never won the World Series, and all 4 of these teams have never been to the World Series either. There are some players that have been to the World Series. Drew Hendrickson has won a World Series. Shaden Hendrickson has won a World Series as well on the Purple Huskies. Other than that, it's a lot of new faces here. And we saw some new faces last in the spring with the Diablos and the Elois OC, with neither player from either team had before that series had been in a World Series or won a World Series. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the future. But overall, just it still kind of got me in a bad mood. The Elois OC, they have a bad history of being the 3 seed. Their very first season, the spring of 2022, they finished with a 9-3 record and were the 3 seed, and lost their very first playoff game. It was 11-8, actually, to the Beach City Bombers. They were a much different Beach City Bombers, but they still lost it. They still lost to them. Steven grounding out to end the game with the bases loaded. Home run would have won it for them, but last year they were the 4 seed, and they probably they probably won a couple games that they shouldn't have. They won a lot of really close games. Thanks a lot to the pitching of Steven and Jordan. But this day Jordan just didn't have the pitching as well as he did last year. And they're going home, and they got some stuff to figure out for the offseason. They had a potential MVP winner. They had a potential Hank Aaron winner on their team, and they weren't able to get the job done. So it's a disappointing way to go out. But I keep rambling on like this, but I don't have many more words I can put into this with the disappointment and shock I am that the Elois OC did lose this game. It's probably the biggest upset of the year, probably the biggest upset in a long time, from a team that was very close to not making the playoffs. They were very close to not making it, to being in there, and then moving on to the league championship series. It's a great accomplishment for the Trash Pandas, and we want to make sure that we give them credit and congratulate them for it as well.
Yeah, Great Man once said, for the Milwaukee Bucks, we don't consider the season a failure. It's just kind of go back, fix a few things. You got to look at the positives, see what was working the most, and come back stronger next season. And I'm sure, in terms of division stuff, like it'll happen for sure. Elois OC are a strong group of guys. They have the consistency that they need to be to build off of this loss and come back even stronger. And Trash Pandas, they kind of put themselves in a great position for the playoffs. So let's forget about this one, and we'll move on to the playoff matchups for our official OC Wiffleball Summer 2023 bracket. And we're going to give you some of our predictions and who we think will make it to the World Series and who's going to be our ultimate Summer 2023 winner of the OC Wiffleball World Series. First, looking at it, we have the Beach City Bombers taking on the Trash Pandas. This is a tough matchup in itself. The second matchup, Endless Warriors versus Purple Huskies. Also an interesting matchup, as we said before. But let's talk about Beach City Bombers taking on the Trash Pandas. Unless you want to make your predictions right now, what are your thoughts about this whole look of the bracket right now?
It's a very interesting bracket. On the one hand, you got two brothers playing against each other. They started originally on the same team. Then Drake and Dylan broke off and made their own teams, which we appreciate, because you can now the more teams we have, the merrier, and things like that. Get more competition and things like that. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, especially if the Hendricksons are missing. That'll be interesting to see. And then for the Beach City Bombers and Trash Pandas, Beach City Bombers, their only 2 losses this year have been to the Purple Huskies. They've beaten every single other team that they've played. It's going to be very interesting. For my predictions, starting with the Beach City Bombers, Trash Pandas, I got the Beach City Bombers winning this one. I've got them winning this one in 2. I believe the pitching of Zach and Tyler Moore will be more than enough to take care of business. Trash Pandas do have some power on there, but I believe the pitch. If Tyler and Zach Moore are both similar pitchers to Steven, some similar numbers, a little bit higher ERAs, but they have very similar pitches to Steven in terms of the movement and things like that. Wouldn't call him a poor man, but like maybe just below or something like that. But overall, I got the Beach City Bombers winning that series and moving on to the World Series. And then for the next matchup, I've got the MS Warriors beating the Purple Huskies. I'm not sure whether it would be 2 or 3, but I've got the MS Warriors upsetting the number 1 seed. With Dylan and Kyle coming back, their 2 best hitters, especially with the best average and on-base percentage, against a team that's possibly depleted. I can't see the Purple Huskies making it out of this round. So I've got my World Series prediction will be the Beach City Bombers versus the MS Warriors.
Okay, so you got the Beach City Bombers and the MS Warriors in the World Series championship. My predictions are as follows. So, Beach City Bombers take on Trash Pandas. You said, 2-game series set. Beach City Bombers take it all the way and sweep the Trash Pandas. I actually think this might be a little bit closer than you might think for the series because, Beach City Bombers did have some struggles in some games, especially that one game against the Avocabras. There was a kind of a close game for them. So, I think, it depends whether the Moore brothers are on their game and pitching their lights out. If Trash Pandas can have the good, consistent pitching that they had against the LA Wolves OC in that last game, I think they got a good shot at least keeping this a 3-game series set. But I feel like Beach City Bombers have better longevity, better ability to get the bats going. Trash Pandas, might keep up in that department, but I feel like Beach City Bombers will take this one in 3 games rather than 2. Maybe a little bit more of a struggle for them to get to the World Series, but ultimately I think Beach City Bombers will take this one. And for the MS Warriors take on the Purple Huskies, the Hendrickson brothers are going to be out. It's going to be a tough challenge for them to even try to get past through Dylan Hoffman and Joey Ponder, if they're both pitching every single game that they're going to be in. It's hard for me to imagine a Purple Huskies team being able to even get through against, the MS Warriors, of course, because of how strong of a roster they've got now with the return of Dylan Hoffman and Joey Ponder. And Dylan Hoffman, being the lefty that he is, generally throws better against guys like Drake Hoffman and True and righty hitters as well. I imagine this one might be a little bit different than what other people are thinking. I feel like MS Warriors might take this one in 2-game series set instead of just 3 games overall. So I have MS Warriors and Beach City Bombers in the World Series.
Gotcha. Yeah, just to put a little reminder out there, when we predicted this last year, Stephen Hayden did predict the winner correctly. Justin predicted the MS Warriors to win last year when they were the number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And Steven chose correctly with the LA Wolves of OC. What do you know? You choose your own team and you back it up. So fair enough. So we both have the same results going for the World Series. Both of these playoff series that we just talked about will be taking place on Monday nights, and then the World Series will be taking place on Tuesday nights. What is your prediction for a World Series winner?
If every single guy is there, for the MS Warriors, Joey Ponder's there, if Dylan Hoffman's there, this could be I feel like this one's going to be closer than than a lot of people would imagine. This could be the pitchers duel that we expect the entire season. I believe MS Warriors fell to the Beach City Bombers earlier in the season, if I'm
They
correct.
did, yeah. It was a 7-0 game that the MS Warriors lost. The Beach City Bombers beat them. Although they feel like there was some controversy with no radar gun being used, so we'll see if that affects them, because there'll obviously be radar guns for the playoffs. Every field will have it, so that'll be interesting to see if they think that.
Yeah, I mean, Beach City Bombers, actually, their team has been around for quite a while. Obviously, they have a lot of new look players on their team. And then obviously those snazzy New Jerseys and Instagram that they just got rolling, by the way. And if you're not following Beach City Bombers Instagram, go follow that right now. But back to it, they had all their guys in that game. Yeah, obviously you had the controversy about the radar thing, so things could be a little bit different with the addition of that radar in this game as well. I think it's a question of, can the MS Warriors hit well against the Moore brothers? Did they learn from that experience in that game? Do they have a good shot? I do think they have a good shot. I think this thing will be strung out in 3 games and duked out, obviously. I just think, personally, the MS Warriors have more experience in the playoffs than the Beach City Bombers do. So I feel like this could be really close, and I think the MS Warriors are going to be the ones who are going to take this victory. Just because, Dylan Hoffman has been in this league for 3 seasons now. He's been MVP. He's been Cy Young Award winner. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulders. I think he's going to play lights out the entire series all the way through, and I expect him to hit just as well as any other player in this World Series championship.
Yeah, and I think these two teams, they've kind of had they've kind of had the best stories of the year. The Beach City Bombers. That last year they were the last place team, and then they add Zach Moore. They get a couple new guys, and all of a sudden they're the 2 seed. And then Dylan Hoffman, obviously, we know what happened to him earlier in the year. We all honored him, and what happened earlier this year. So I think these two teams are kind of have the most going for them and going into the playoffs. I think it's going to be a very interesting series. I think it'll go 3 games no matter what. I'm concerned on how the MS Warriors are going to be able to hit Tyler and Zach. We just saw the way that they hit against a guy like Steven. As we mentioned, from what I've seen, Tyler and Zach especially Tyler, is a very similar pitcher to Steven. And Steven, in the playoffs last year, he had a lot of success versus the MS Warriors in the playoffs. So I'm interested to see if that will occur again. But overall, this would be a very tough one to decide bracket wise. But I believe it'll go 3 games regardless. I believe you'll get some very good games, some very good pitching. But overall, I've got the Beach City Bombers winning their first title. I think the pitching will be too much in MS Warriors, and they have a little bit more consistent hitting in terms of getting on base than the MS Warriors. I think the MS Warriors may actually win the first game. I'm not guaranteeing that, but I think it's possible. And then the Beach City Bombers will go on, come back, and win the next 2. As we saw the previous year with the MS Warriors winning the first game of their playoff series, there's just the Elbows of OC last year, and then losing the next 2 games, getting shut out in both of those games, I might add. But I believe Tyler will. I believe Tyler will have, if the Beach City Bombers want a chance, he'll have to be the MVP of this series. I think for them overall, he needs to be lights out on the mound. He needs to provide them with hitting, be their main spark plug for hitting and things like that. Complete this great turnaround for the Beach City Bombers. That they had success early on in the league, but the past season or 2 they haven't had as much success. Obviously, last year they finished I believe 1-10 or 1-11. Then Tyler was on that team. He was very frustrated. He would pitch pretty well for 4 innings, and they wouldn't have much else. But now with Zach there, I believe they go get the job done.
I like that prediction, man. I mean, good that we're on opposite sides of this thing, and when it comes to Tuesday and when we finally crown a winner for the summer season, we'll see. You could be 2-0, and then I could be 0-2, or we could split the predictions even. But we got our pick. So Stephen Hayden has chosen the Beach City Bombers to win the World Series. I have the MS Warriors to win the World Series. And we'll see what's expected to happen in this exciting matchup of the playoffs. So we'll see the City Bombers taking on Trash Pandas on Monday, and MS Warriors versus Purple Huskies on Monday as well. 2 games that we're both going to be following closely, and then we'll see what happens on Tuesday. And don't forget, we're gonna have that live show broadcast of the World Series, the first one for OC Wiffleball that the second one, I should say. We did have the World Series from the fall broadcasted and hosted by yours truly, Stephen Hayden, and he did a great job on that broadcast. But this is the second time we're gonna do a live broadcast, and we're gonna try to make it more of a show, if anything, and get some stories of who's participating in that World Series. But I'm excited to see what happens on Tuesday, and who ends up as the winner of the predictions, and who will be crowned as the summer 2023 OC Football winner.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find this out. It's going to be a very exciting playoff round and things like that. Any 4 of these teams could win it. It's very possible for any 4 of these teams to win it, but it's going to be who shows up in the biggest moments here. And last year we saw the Yellow Wolves kind of come out of nowhere and be able to show up in the biggest moments. They had a good regular season. They went 7-3 last season, but once it got to the playoffs, Steven really stepped up. And Jordan did as well with Steven, especially on the mound. And then that legendary that home run in the 3rd game versus the MS Warriors, and in Game 2 of the World Series, that game saving catch he had in the outfield. And those are the type of moments that a team's going to need to be able to win a World Series, and we'll see who's able to produce these moments.
Yeah, those are the defining factors of a game. Which team is going to be outplaying one another, and we could see both teams doing spectacular things in this series. And it's exciting time because you get to see which team is going to put it out more on the field than any other, in part. So we'll see what the result is on Monday and Tuesday. I think that might be it for this episode. We're going to be talking about a lot more things next in the coming weeks, and we're hoping to get some interviews with the eventual World Series MVP, and some stories as well from other players from around the league. So we're excited for that as well. So we'll see. Unless you got anything else you want to talk about before we end this episode, and I think we're just about ready to get this one uploaded.
Yeah, it's a busy time for Wiffleball. We've been, since we got knocked out, we had to go blow off the steam at the SoCal Wiffleball tournament. Also, I should mention, completely unrelated to Wiffleball, the Angels are winning 25-0 as we speak.
Woo!
Just unrelated note. That's for we got a lot of Angels fans out there at OC Wiffleball as well. So yeah, we're getting to busy times. We're getting the summer starting to wind down a little bit, but we'll be building back up for the tournaments and things like that, and then we'll be building up for the fall season, which starting up August 8th. So we'll be building up to all that stuff. So registration is there to sign up online. We'll talk more about the divisions and how they split up in the future. So it should be some fun times.
Yeah, I got my boy David Fletcher's back here. You can't see the jersey. Let me turn around. There we go.
We don't need to. We don't need to see it.
But yes, we got a lot of interesting things going on in the off season. Keep an eye out for the details about the summer tournament, and also keep an eye out for the OC Wiffleball banquet as well. We'd love to see everybody there. We had a pretty good turnout last year heading out to Newport. This one going to be at a different clubhouse up in Yorba Linda. So we expect to have at least a big vast majority of guys at that banquet, and maybe we'll hand out awards. I think next week's preview we'll also talk about the potential award winners for the summer 2023 season. And obviously yours truly, Stephen Hayden, will be in the lineup for the MVP. Jordan Drexler may be in the lineup for Hank Aaron Award, as you said. Lucas Sardo could be the Silver Slugger, blah, 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 blah. But, we'll discuss those in the next episode. I think we're ready to finish this one and press the end record button on this episode. But everyone, thank you for watching as always. Make sure you subscribe to the Hunky Dory Sports Show YouTube. Follow the Hunky Dory Sports Show Instagram and OC Wiffleball Instagram. Hey, go follow Wiffle D's. Go follow Beach City Bombers and Ellie Wilson OC Instagrams. They're lighting things up, trying to show off some pretty cool things. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday when we have our World Series broadcast.
Yeah, good luck to the 4 teams out there, and we will see you for that. So make starting around 5:30. So make sure if you're available, we'd love to have you watch that and watch the live stream of the World Series as well.
Absolutely, we'll make it as exciting as possible. But that is it for us. This has been Justin Lee with my partner Stephen Hayden, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Take care. See you.